Good evening. I'm Bill Christopher with the Dorchester Chamber of Commerce. I'd like to welcome you and thank you for joining us tonight live, or if you're watching this, for taking time to watch the recording as we have a conversation with the Cambridge Waterfront Development, Inc. Before I introduce our guests, I do want to thank our sponsors again for all the work they do to pull this off. WHCP, we're in their studios tonight. You can see the flashing lights behind me, and for all the technology work that they do to pull this off. Cambridge Association of Neighborhoods, the Dorchester Banner, and the Dorchester Chamber of Commerce. The goal of these sessions are to provide topics that we think are of interest to the community, and to be able to give you guys information about things that are happening that are important. If there's topics that you guys want to see, make sure you share those with us. You can actually do that in the chat box tonight. We'll pick it up from there, or you can reach out to any one of those organizations and actually let us know if there's a topic you want us to cover and to cover over the next several months. I'm really excited to introduce our guests tonight. Both these gentlemen are business and community leaders. They've dedicated decades of their lives to working to make Dorchester a better place to live, play, and work. The Choptank River waterfront property between the Bill Burton Pier and the Cambridge Creek is a one of a kind piece of property. And we got one time to get this right. And I'm really take great comfort in the fact that we have Frank and Jeff leading the efforts with this, with a group of other folks that are part of CWDI to get that done. So I'm really excited to have both of them here tonight. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to have them do a quick introduction of themselves and their background, so you guys get a feel for what their skill sets are and who they are, because it's pretty impressive to have folks like this working on your behalf and getting things done. So with that, Jeff, can you take a couple minutes and just give us a little bit of history, your background, and why you think this is exciting for you?
Yeah, sure. Bill, thank you. And thanks to the Chamber for giving us the opportunity to come out and talk this over a little bit. I'm born and bred Dorchester County. Been in the real estate business here for over 30 years, and was a county commissioner here in 94 to 98 when we got a little bit of stuff done, a little bit of this started. And ever since then, it's been a little piece of my soul that I've tried to keep an interest in and keep that fire burning. And the opportunity presented itself. There was an opening on the Sailwinds Park board. Frank called me, got me back in there, and then from there we've kind of gotten this CWDI thing moving and rolling on a little bit, faster, and the opportunity with the hospitals popped up. I'm also on the executive committee and the board of directors. I'm actually the secretary of the largest residential MLS in the country, Bright MLS. It's about 100,000 members, about a $50 million a year business. And with that, there's some real good contacts in the development in the real estate world that are real helpful here. Other than that, just really appreciate the opportunity and looking forward to getting some stuff moving here.
Great. Thanks, Jeff. And Frank, can you do the same thing for us? Give us a little bit of background from it.
Again, Bill, thank you so much to you and the Chamber and our other sponsors for essentially supporting this initiative to get community conversation going in Dorchester and Cambridge. I was born and raised in Montgomery County on the Western Shore, so coming to Dorchester was certainly an eye-opening experience, a special place, no doubt. But coming from Montgomery County, I took an interesting path. I went to college in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, in Amish country, then ended up working in a public accounting firm in Washington, D.C. for 3 years, then went back to Bloomington, Indiana to get my MBA in entrepreneurship, and making my way then from there to Philadelphia, working in the bankruptcy and troubled company consulting arena. At that time, my wife was finishing medical school and she found an opportunity to practice here in Cambridge. So we took that opportunity and came down. And like I said, there's no question in my mind that we have purpose here. When we moved here in 1993, I took the opportunity to volunteer with Sailwinds Park. At that time, they had just developed the vision for the waterfront, and then became its executive director for the first 5 years of its existence. That was certainly an incredible time for me. Also during that time, I coached football at the high school. We then had two daughters who went to the public school system here, graduated from CSD in 2014 and 2015. I also then, in 1997, took a job with a local insurance brokerage firm as its CFO, and have been there ever since. Over the past 28 years, I have been on boards of the Chamber of Commerce, Salem Park, the Dorchester Robin Samuel YMCA, and the Salvation Army. I've been involved in the Salem Park organization and the vision for over 28 years, as I said. I'm passionate about it, but most importantly, I want to see that it's high quality, economically sustainable, complementary to our downtown, accessible to all members of our community, and preserves the public access to the waterfront. Now, I'll never be from here, but Cambridge is Frank's home. So this is certainly a special place.
Hey, great. Thanks, Frank. I think we're having a little technical challenge there, but hopefully our crack technologists out there are going to get that corrected for us here relatively quickly. So we're going to jump into some quick questions here that came in. And I think the first one I'm going to ask is literally providing an overview of what Cambridge Waterfront Development, Inc. is, because again, a lot of folks hear that but don't know what it is, and then how it came to be in existence. And I think Frank, you were going to kick that off, but again, I think both of you guys will be providing some answers to that.
Yes. Well, CWDI is a nonprofit economic development corporation that was formed in partnership by the city, the county, and the state of Maryland. It's a 7-member board comprised of 2 city appointees, 1 county appointee, a governor appointee, a member of the Salem Park Inc. board, and the sitting city manager and the sitting county manager. Currently, Richard Zeidman, who is our president, and Daryl Butcher, our vice president, those are both the city appointees. Jeff serves as the county appointee. Michael Friends, who is the executive director of the Maryland Stadium Authority, is the governor's appointee. I am the Salem Park board member, and then, of course, Patrick Komisky and Keith Atkins are the respective city and county managers. We do have an interim executive director, Sandra Tripp Jones, who many remember as our former city manager. So we are well positioned from a leadership perspective. A lot of quality talent and skill sets around the table to move this initiative forward. Why was CWDI formed at that time? The reality is that no one at the city and county level had the time to put full-time attention to the project. And so they needed to form a board that could do that. The other key thing is we wanted to maintain momentum and continuity as political leadership changes. And of course, when you're dealing with economic development, we need to protect confidentiality as potential developers consider investment in the project. So clearly, very clear reasons and understandable why the city, county, and state came together to form this group and to deal with an incredibly valuable asset in our community.
And Jeff, do you want to talk a little bit about the kind of the value with coming from the county council and working with developers, working with local government, and how the kind of bringing these groups together we think is going to make a huge difference to your ability to work with developers?
Yeah, Bill. Thanks. And one thing that needs to be clear here too. I mean, Frank and I operate in a little bit of an odd role because we're both members of Salem Park too, which is the nonprofit. Basically keeper of the flame, that for 20 odd years, God bless everybody that's been a part of that organization and kept those embers burning, to get us to where we are today. So we kind of dual role that, which later we can explain where that may be beneficial down the road. I think I got it. You got to thank the city council and the county council, both the previous one and the current ones that helped form this and then kept it intact. My experience back in the 90s when we did Hyatt, it is basically, like Frank said, a full-time job. I was very fortunate when I was a county councilman. My family and my business, support let me give a lot of time, and the council members that I served with were more than supportive, in helping us move that all forward. And, you look at our elected people today, most of them have jobs. The environment we're in right now with COVID and everything else that's going on, their hands are full. And you really none of these developments are going to happen overnight, and none of the projects. And you want that continuity, to be there. And the developers look for that. They want to know they're dealing with a party that's going to be there, that means what they say, and that tries to back it up. So again, my hat's off to the political leadership for seeing, the truth and having the vision to understand that this is it's not a one-off, industrial thing that the county economic development does, or the city economic development. This is a different animal. There was a couple routes we could go here. We could bring a master developer in and basically sit back and let them do it. I think then we would pretty much be at the whim of what they wanted, and it would be very profit motivated. From our perspective, kind of doing it ourselves, there's not as much profit motive. There is a more genuine, organic growth factor there that we're looking for to create jobs and quality of life for everybody in the area. So again, we're very fortunate with Sandra right now that she's working for us pretty cheap, and so we haven't had to staff up a whole lot. We've got some subcontractors and stuff, but even that part of it, it takes an organization to move this thing forward. And my hat's off too to the people on the board that Frank mentioned. It's a real good group of people, a lot of different skill sets that mesh real well there, and sometimes don't. There's some real strong back and forth there, but that process helps. It helps us hear all sides and see everything and move things forward. So so far it's working. We've come a long way in a very short amount of time, I'll be honest with you, and I'm real positive, Bill. I think it's a real asset to the community, and hopefully we can keep moving forward.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about myself. I mean, when I learned what was happening, it was actually made perfect sense, and it seems to be the only way to actually do something like this. And you just touched on some things, which I think leads into the next question, which obviously you guys have been at this for, the CWDI hasn't been around that long, but can you talk about what's happened at the site over the past 25 years? There's been a lot going on down there, and Frank, you're probably best to do that. You've been living and breathing it for about that time frame. So
right.
Can you cover a little bit about what's happened already at the site as you guys are planning for the future?
Absolutely. As you said, I've been at it since almost day one. Of course, the original vision was created back in 1992 by a grassroots board of directors that totaled 35 members from various communities throughout Dorchester County and organizations. So the intent at the outset was to make sure that there was input from all segments of our community about what the vision might be for this waterfront. And of course, many people may remember, that organization was a Committee of 100 of Dorchester. And what came from that was the original illustration, which the former chairman of the board, Bob Spedden, often referred to as pretty picture, and it has served as our guide for the last 25 years. That vision and the proposal for the initial development of the site was presented to then Governor Schaefer back in '92, and he just essentially fell in love with the project. Saw it as sort of how he started the Inner Harbor in Baltimore City. And so once we presented, he made a commitment to us to essentially lease us the port property at the time and put funding mechanisms in place that, when combined with city, county, and local private resources, allowed us to move that project, start that project again back in the early 90s. And so when you think about the projects that we were able to accomplish at that time, we essentially took the old warehouse that essentially took tuna from ocean-going vessels and transported it to cold water seafood here back many years ago. We turned that into a local community center and festival hall, as well as festival grounds. We then were able to put in place the initial playground equipment for everybody's play space, Of course, the visitor center was part of that the early development, and Jeff was very involved as the county commissioner in that project. The boardwalk, the beach and revetment that you see out there today, and the amphitheater. Those were all early projects that were done back in the early to mid 90s. And I will tell you today, those are still in very much their rawest form. And so obviously what we hope to be doing here in the incoming years is to take them from a raw form and really refine them to create this waterfront destination that that has been shown in our vision thus far. So, of course, what happened then in the mid to late 90s, these projects, along with our vision for future development on this site, attracted the Hyatt. And I remember one Saturday morning that Bob Sped and I met with the VP of Development Hyatt to share with him our vision for the waterfront. And he asked us 3 questions. He said, how much of this land do you own? And how many acres are we talking about here? Or the 2 questions. And, we said, we don't own anything. We're essentially fiduciaries of conceptual vision of the waterfront. And we're talking about 35 acres. And so Hyatt said, boy, we need 10 times that to do what we'd like to do. And so at that time, Bob Spedden said, I've got an opportunity for you. And he took them over to the Eastern Shore State Hospital Center. And the rest, as they say, is somewhat history. Obviously, a lot of work had to happen for that to occur. But what that did, it sort of redirected resources and time from the Salewinds vision to the Hyatt. And rightfully so, because that was an incredible opportunity for us to take on. And so what happened then was Salewinds sort of was in a lull. And during that time, then the city of Cambridge took over the lease of the port property and essentially ran Governor's Hall through various private contractors. Then approximately 8 years ago, the city and state decided finally to pursue, once the Hyatt was here, they decided to pursue development of the port property and issued an RFP. And that RFP generated several responses, and they chose Jerome J. Parks companies and entered into an exclusive development agreement for a period of time. So then that started sort of the discussions of developing the port property and the waterfront again. During this time, Salewinds Park Inc. still was operational, as Jeff indicated. We still kept that flame going. And as part of the parks plan, there was a real need for a welcoming gateway into our community. And so as a result of some funding opportunities at the state level, Salewinds Park Inc. jumped in, and we were able to acquire the former Burger King and garage properties there at the corner of Route 50 and Maryland Avenue. And so once again we were able to kind of come in and certainly be of value to the waterfront development. And today we still partner with the city on the gateways as we maintain the property, and also will ultimately work with the city on the future development of that area into a welcoming gateway. So after that, of course, the city and parks were not able to come to an agreement on a redevelopment plan. So that relationship ended. And then at that time, the state of Maryland decided to essentially convey the port property to the city, saying to the city, you're in a better position to facilitate future development because it's in your community. And so we're going to give you the property with some stipulations, which really related to the fact that it must be used for economic development. And so that occurred and led to ultimately the development of CWDI. So, a lot of things have happened over the last 25 years, but we're in a great position today based on local control of property and our ability to essentially foster this development from a grassroots perspective as we started 25 years ago.
So thanks, Frank. That was great. And you just touched on grassroots and community involvement. How can you guys talk a little bit about how you're gathering public input for this and getting feedback in terms of as you're coming up with plans and thinking about how to move this forward?
Well, I'll start again on that. when you think back in 1992, the effort, the grassroots effort to really come up with a conceptual plan for the waterfront began with a committee of 100, and literally that was 100 individuals and organizations coming together and essentially visioning what this waterfront could be. Later, 2 years later, in 1994, we conducted a waterfront constituent-based charrette where all the different entities that were on the waterfront came together and re-looked at that plan of 2 years ago to make sure that it still made sense. There was some refinement done there, and some refined plans emerged from that. Then in 2006, you may remember the Cambridge RUDAT, which was a very unique sort of process where a team of architects came into the community and looked at the community as a whole, and then specifically at the Salewinds vision and how that could be incorporated, and once again, community support of that vision. In 2009, we actually conducted Cambridge Waterfront 2020, which again was another community-based charrette system or process that reaffirmed the vision. And again, I say not all the intimate details of the waterfront plan, but really conceptual: waterfront destination, maintain public access to the waterfront, mixed-use development, those types of things. And these were just consistently reaffirmed in the process we went through. Of course, that Waterfront 2020 plan was ultimately integrated into the Cambridge's comprehensive plan. In 2010, the Cambridge Economic Development Plan identified Salewinds Park and the vision of Salewinds to be the most significant economic development opportunity in Cambridge. So again, reaffirming the importance of this. Of course, the process we went through with the parks, again, while the plan wasn't what the city was looking for, conceptually a destination, it was consistent there. And now here we are, 2018, when we started CWDI, and the Salewinds Park Inc. vision, that vision back 25 years, became the basis for where we are going now. So a lot of community input has occurred, and of course, a lot of opportunity will come forward. I mean, ultimately, any plan we come up will need to be reviewed by planning and zoning, which will be public. Certainly the city council will be looking at this. So I think a lot of times people forget how much we have actually done and how much community input has actually been put into this, but still more will be coming.
Great. Thanks, Frank. Just a quick reminder, you guys that are online, you can actually ask questions. Just go into the chat, depending on whether you're using YouTube or Facebook and maybe in a different spot, but just go, you can chat out any question you want or any comments. You can say great job if you like for these guys. But if you have comments, send that out. Quick question for you, and this is probably to Jeff. What are the current plans for the old Dorchester General, the now Shore Regional Health Facility, but the old Dorchester General facility that's on the property?
Before we jump to that, just back on that history thing, it even goes deeper back than that. I mean, before Frank, people that have been around a while, Rouse came to Cambridge and did a huge study. There was a Gilman group that came to Cambridge and did a huge study. So there's been a lot of public talk and chat and input and, things. And if you're new to the area, you don't know that history, but it's been there, on the hospital. And I want to give a shout out and a thank you to Ken Kozel. I know he was on with you not long ago, Bill, but Ken's been real helpful. He's bought into the vision. He gets it. He's a part of the community, and his staff over there have been real helpful for us. We've had some people look at the existing DGH building for an adaptive reuse, whatever that may have been. It's not panned out. That building, if you don't know the history of that building, there was a hospital, then they built around it and they tore that old original hospital down, which, if we had it, we would probably try to keep it because it was a pretty significant historical structure, but it's pretty much gone. There's a little bit of one corner there you still see. We've had that looked at, and nobody sees the economics just don't make sense, in the current environment. So most likely it's going to be demolition. It'll come down. The site will be greened up and cleaned up and be shovel ready, for whatever comes. I have to say that in this whole process, there's no, this is going here and this is going here and this is going here, especially in the environment we're in right now, because, finance and being able to do a deal, and build something out, it's a whole different world right now. It's crazy because the interest rates are about as good as they've been in a long time, but the lending climate is not as strong just because of the demand and making the business work. But I will tell you, in the history thing too, Frank's always said the hospital's the 50-yard line. And we never had it. We always had the visitor center side and a little bit that the county and the state had there. We had the state and the city and the port side, but we never had the big piece in the middle. Now we do. So now it's time to move this thing forward. And we are open to, there's been some talk about trying to reuse some things from the hospital, some of the brickwork. We've made gestures about some of the chapel, some of the things in the chapel. If they don't go out to the new facility, we'd like to make a place for some of that to stay on site. A lot of people in this county are very tied to that hospital and that building, and we're aware of that. So it could be a sad day when it comes down, but it also could be a new beginning.
Yeah, no, great. I appreciate that answer. That was great. So you both have mentioned, you just mentioned that answer, mentioned it a couple of times, public access. How do you plan to maintain public access to the waterfront? That is always talked about and a big concern for folks.
I would tell you that is the first and foremost priority of any discussion when we start to talk about development of the waterfront. We've seen that go away in a number of other areas in our community. And so, that is the one thing that Jeff and I, certainly as members of the board and really being sort of the local guys, have said, hey, anything we do, we must maintain public access to the waterfront and this continuous waterfront promenade. And so, if the listeners and viewers are familiar with the wharf, our commitment is to continue the promenade from the wharf to the boat ramp, and from the boat ramp across the hospital waterfront, around the beach, past the playground and the visitor center, and up to the fishing pier. So there's an absolute commitment there. The other thing that I will say is part of our development plan, we are making a commitment to at least retain 20% green space, public green space, and on the site. So that, in combination with the promenade, is an absolute commitment that we have towards the project, and will be defined likely before any development even occurs.
Jeff, anything you want to add to Frank's answer there?
Yeah, if I could, Bill. Frank and I joke about it, but I always say that the DMZ, the waterfront is the DMZ. And look, I'm a real estate guy, and I can tell you there are a lot of guys that would like to build out there right on the edge of that river, grab that view and take advantage of it. And my experience, our group, everybody, you take a step back, and how do you put a dollar value on Central Park in New York? What's the quality of life for the people that live around that? What do you do to the tax base in that immediate area from having that, instead of having 50 condos there that have waterfront access, the whole community has it. So I can tell you that it'll be a hard fight for anybody to get out there on that walkway and waterfront. And again, it's the DMZ, and it's, we're real close. We've got some landscape designers and architects coming in next week. That'll be really defined, and we're making a big effort, that be the first thing that gets done, is that walkway. And we even have discussions and ideas about how to connect further out, down Dorchester Avenue to the packing house and everything that's going on there, up Cedar Street to downtown, from the Maryland Avenue Bridge into downtown. We're not trying to separate anything. We're trying to link everything together and make it easier for people to get where they want to get, and to get a little taste of everything we have to offer. So the waterfront public access, I can tell you, is non-negotiable from most of the members of CWDI's perspective.
Hey, great. Thanks. I think that should make people feel much more comfortable, because obviously the questions I get, that's probably the one I hear the most often. Now, I know the thing will kill a deal the quickest is talking about it. So I'm not asking you to share too much, but can you talk at all about what's going on with any of the current developers or businesses that may be interested in the property, either at a generic level or high level, to just let people know kind of what might be coming up or what people are talking about already?
Yeah. You want me to take this one, Frank?
Sure.
Until we are operating under a non-disclosure agreement, which at the current time we are not with anybody, we're going to talk, and we're going to try to get a feel. I don't think people realize the time commitment but how accessible we are and how much we're out here trying to feel people out. Bill, every time I talk to you, it's, what do you hear and what's going on? What do you, and that's what we're trying to do. So right now we have 3 letters of intent in play. 2 of them are local, which does my heart real good. If that can be some of our first, development out there, some local guys trying to do good by their hometown, I think that's fantastic. One of them is RAR, who is looking for a production and food, kind of mix thing out there. They've assured us that will not harm the downtown location. They think it'll actually help it, get them opened up and expanded in there a little bit more. And then Yacht Maintenance, who already leases some land there from the city, is in a pretty active growth and expansion mode right now. George is trying to put in a pretty big travel lift out there that will be one of the biggest ones on the bay, to be honest with you, definitely on this side. The employment side and that whole maritime activity thing. And I think that's when you get down to this, and I know we got that question later on, but Dorchester County, the Cambridge Creek and the Choptank, it's a working waterfront. And I think we're all trying to make a strong effort to make sure that image and that story gets told. There's a lot of history in that Cambridge shipyard facility. And again, the job growth potential there and just what it brings to the community and people, we think it's an asset. So those 2, the 2 local guys, and then right now that's looking good. Again, it's a questionable time out here, finance wise, grant wise, all that, but we're playing it through. The third one, and I know there's some questions about this one, is Peregrine Senior Living. And that would be an assisted living and memory care facility. We just did enter a letter of intent with them and for about a 90-day study period. And I would tell you, I know there's been some discussion about that one. And the first thing I'll say is it's not on the water. The location is back where the current, the old nursing quarters and the 2 smaller office buildings that Dorchester General have out there on the Burn Street side. So it's back off the waterfront. There'll actually be a road between it and the river. The key to that one is it's a job creation. From my perspective and having sat on the other side of the political table and knowing how hard it is to create jobs in this county, it's a 50, 60, 70 jobs. I don't remember, Frank, was it 3 million in payroll?
Yeah, 2 to 3 million.
2 to 3 million in payroll to get rolling around out here. And the other side of it, we're going to control a lot of the aesthetics and the design, elements of this, of everything out here. So it'll be done to fit, and to go in there right. The other thing, just a little bit more history, early on, we had 3 or 4 national developers at the table. And every one of them said the same thing, said, you've got to activate the site. You've got to get people out here. Nobody's going to come put a shovel in the ground and build anything until you got people out here asking, where can I get, a hamburger? Where can I get a drink? What can I do? Where, out here walking and using it. So the other benefit of the senior living thing is it gets that entire population, the staff, the visitors, the family, all an opportunity to get there, to get out there, to get downtown, to get around. So that one, again, a lot of it's a job creation. A lot of it is that trying to buffer between the residential there and the commercial and other development. It kind of fits that piece. And I'll be honest with you, Bill, and this, the demographics and the economics of our county, it is one of the projects that makes sense here. And it is probably one of the few projects in the next 24 months that can be financed. So, that's anything we're doing here. If it's not economically feasible, it's a non-starter. But we have to go to the letter of intent stage. It's like, Frank says, we have a, fiduciary responsibility here to the people of the county, in the city to explore everything that comes up within reason. We're trying to do the right thing.
And Bill,
Great. No, I absolutely agree with you. When that discussion came up about that type of facility, we definitely need that in the county. I was kind of amazed that when I came back after being gone for 35 years that we didn't have a facility like that here already, given our demographics. So it clearly is something that fits and is needed in the county. Just real quick, we did get a question in from Jackie Davis that I think ties in with your answer, and you kind of answered it, but I figure we might want to give her a more direct answer. Her question is, it may be a bit premature, but do you see one developer with a vision or multiple developers driving this project overall?
It's going to be multi. We had some early discussions with some people about a master developer type concept. I'll be honest with you, in my experience in the real estate world, I'm not a fan of it for us in this location. And I think this is going to morph over time, just like the senior living thing gets us a critical mass of people and employees and things down there and some money moving around. Yacht maintenance does that. RAR does that. Each one of those is going to attract people. We don't know what we don't know. So I think in my mind, and I think we're all that way, CWDI is probably going to be the master developer. And we're even trying to not define definite development parcels. We're trying to leave that open to work with somebody comes with an idea, and some money and something that works, we're going to try to make it work. Outside of those public areas that, again, we're pretty cementing in they're non-touchable. But the flip side of that, Bill, is they add value to these guys. This senior living guys, he sees, the value that the development that we're talking about in the public, the parks and the access and the water and the fishing pier and the restaurants, it all adds value to them too. So, hopefully CWDI can be the master developer, and then it's all win-win. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for win-win deals for the developer and the community.
And Jeff, of course, you've always said the key difference between us and the master developers, we don't have a profit motive.
Right.
We are doing this all in the best interest of the community. So, we're probably better able to do deals that work and make sure and ensure long-term financial success.
Right.
Which is really what we want, because when you think about, those priorities conceptual priorities, one of them is economic sustainability, and we have that opportunity, as a nonprofit development corporation to play a different role in sort of negotiate in a different way that maybe a for-profit private master developer would have to function. Now, don't get us wrong, obviously we certainly want to make sure that we're not giving things away if we don't have to, but it is something that is unique to our position in this role.
The flip side of that too, again, in my experience, you could get a master developer tie this thing up and the economy goes bad, or we have something that's happening now, it gets mothballed for 7 years. Yep. And then we're just sitting here staring. We at least have the ability, even if it's little pieces of this or that here or there, or at least the public space, we can assure that stuff gets started and gets moving.
Great. All right. So I'm going to ask you an easy question and then a hard one. So I'm going to give you an easy one first. Give you a couple of seconds. I ask you, but Judy Prawl asked about boat access. I know you guys have talked about it before, but being a working waterfront and being on the river. But have you guys thought about what you're going to do to make it so that the boaters can actually get up and get to all these cool things you're looking to have built there?
Well, I will tell you, Bill, there is not a day that doesn't go by that each board member either walks or drives by the boat ramp there on Franklin Street and reports on how many trailers and boats are in the parking lot. So just rest assured, we understand the importance of access. What we have to do is, as we move through this development process, is how do we incorporate that into the overall plan? Because it is it's a fairly sizable amount of real estate that is taken up by that. So, but we understand the importance of that access. And Jeff, any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I just, it's even more complicated than that. I mean, that boat ramp is owned by about 20 different people. When you get digging into it, there's DNR money in there. There's open space money, city, county. Again, I think as this thing plays out and develops, right now it's there. I'll be honest with you. I'm an advocate. I think it needs to stay there. I think it adds a lot. It brings a lot of people there. And like Frank said, I mean, we've got this text message thing going back and forth now. I was there at 6 o'clock this morning. There was 24 boats, and Daryl actually, even the other day, he said, "What's all these Maine trailers?" I was like, well, that's people, they tag their trailers in Maine because it's cheaper, So again, we're out there, we're looking, but boater access, public access, swimming, maybe. I mean, there's a lot of that's in play here that we're working at. Actually, and again, we don't have the drawing right where we want it yet. Hopefully with these guys next week, we'll get that further. But there is a conceptually from the boat ramp over towards the wharf, a marina. You know what I mean? That would be a more of a transient marina, not to compete with the city and their marina, but more if we get RAR and some other food and nightlife things out there and stuff, the $200 hamburger boat guys that'll, load up and go across the bay to get a beer and a burger. Hopefully we'll have a spot for them.
Mm-hmm. We'll have a spot for them. Yeah. Great. Good. So this one may be a little tougher and hopefully can be answered in the time frame we have left. But can you guys talk a little bit about how COVID-19's impacted the planning and what you think it's done to the overall plan?
Well, amazingly, the three opportunities that we have in front of us have reaffirmed their commitment to explore their projects on the site. So amazingly, that has not COVID-19 hasn't in any way stymied their enthusiasm for continuing on the path. So that's a really positive thing. The other thing that I think we're seeing evolving though is COVID-19 is making organizations and developers look at new models of development to take into account social distancing and the like. And so now we're thinking perhaps there might be new opportunities to implement such new models in a new site, such as what we're doing now. So, there may be some opportunity for some of that type of development going forward that maybe we weren't anticipating given where we are right now.
Cool. That was easier than I thought it was going to be. Cool. Hey, we got a question from Marvin saying he's our new VP of strategy out at the hospital. And he's asking a question. He's saying he hopes it's not the case, but do you guys see any chances of contamination with any of the parcels of land, again, with the hospital itself being there or anything else that's been built out there? Do you guys expect any of those issues to come up?
No, the hospital did, again, DeCan and his whole team there, they've done a great job. They gave us all their back information. They've been doing that stuff, for the history of the building being there. We've got a phase 1 and phase 2 that are all pretty clean. Developers are going to come in and probably ask to see those and do a little bit more. But the only thing that's an issue out there that people don't realize, and again, if you know your history of Cambridge, from a little bit out in front of the hospital out, that's all fill material. That is not, if you were here when they built the visitor center and they were driving them pylons in, I mean, I got phone calls all day long, all night long. When are they going to stop? When are they going to stop? There's not a lot of bottom out there, so that is going to be a challenge. And again, from our perspective, that's going to be a lot of the open and public space out on the waterfront side anyhow. So, but environmentally, from a dirty environmental perspective, not much. I think where we're going to get challenged is trying to keep, again, being good stewards of the bay, trying to keep the stormwater management and the riparian buffers and, using natural vegetation. And those are all not challenges. They're good challenges. You know what I mean? So that's all stuff we have to be real conscious of and have as little impact on the shoreline and on the river there, because the river's, the golden ticket. That's what we're selling. That's what we're selling.
Great. So that's good. So just a reminder, you guys if you got questions, make sure you shoot them up and ask them. We have a whole stack we can keep going through, but if you guys out there listening have some, if you've got the question, somebody else probably has it. So type it in for us real quick and we'll get it asked here. And I think both of you guys have mentioned this at one point, but it's come up a couple times. The Bill Burton fishing pier really is not part of this plan, but it's kind of integral to this plan. And actually it's been subject of a lot of attention lately at City Council.
We know.
I think so. What are your take on how important the pier is to this project?
Well, first and foremost, the pier is owned by the Department of Natural Resources through the state of Maryland. So obviously that is a separate entity in of itself, but we see it as an integral part of the overall vision. In fact, we include it in the sort of the project scope of the waterfront. It's an incredible asset, to say the least. Obviously, we currently have some challenges with parking and trash and things of that nature, and those are long term. We need to find long-term solutions to that, and we are certainly confident that we can do that. But it is a resource, it's an asset that not many projects have. To get that type of access into the water is pretty special. So we see that as an important element. We've just got to work with the community on the east side of Cambridge to how we can make that a sustainable element of the project that doesn't negatively impact that community, but also becomes an asset. And so we think that's something we're going to be able to work through, but absolutely a very important part of the plan.
Great, thanks.
Hey, Bill, on that too. Let me just add on that too. Frank and I have met with Jeannie Hadway at DNR, and Dana, who is the site manager out there, have both been enormously helpful. Again, takes a village, and we all have to remember that we may not always agree on all the parts of this thing, but if we can get together and talk and try to come up with some solutions, it makes it go a lot easier. And we're having those conversations, and we've met with some of the people over on the East Cambridge side, and their issues are valid. There's nobody's denying that. And, it's like Frank said, we've got some ideas of how to get some funding out of this thing to take care of trash and security. And we actually even made some suggestions that we're still going back to DNR with on parking and moving some of that over on the visitor center side, just to increase that traffic on that side and be able to better police it. So we know it's an issue, but again, reach out, let us know, because if we don't know, we can't try to fix it.
Great. Kind of tied into that question, one of the other questions that came in earlier was about the group looking at both sides of the creek at the entrance. As right now we're talking about from the Burton Pier to the Cambridge Creek, but there was some questions about the other side. Again, can't boil the ocean, but if you guys got some thoughts about, what you might want to look at and someday looking at the other side of the creek.
If we're successful, right now, I think the idea for CWDI is we're in business to put ourselves out of business. If we can get this done and funded and functioning the way we think, then we probably go away. There will probably be a management entity that survives, that takes care of some stuff. The other side of the creek is pretty much privately owned. We have looked at some other parcels in the area, and with development, there's always spinoff. There's always somebody that comes and something doesn't make sense on our site or somewhere, but we can always say, hey, look, so and so's got his piece over here. Let me show it to you. And so it's kind of a natural spinoff kind of thing. But as far as our charge to do, it's not there. And the city's doing a great job there at Long Wharf. So that's that's a start.
Great. You started a fundraising effort last year, and I know because of COVID and some other things, do you guys plan to get that going again? And what were some of the goals for, you knew you had some plans for those funds, and what do you need to do to get that going again?
Yeah,
For this economy.
go ahead. Yeah. The timing has to be right, Bill, on that one. Obviously, people are suffering still right now, and to go out and ask for dollars is going to be a challenge. We got out of the gate really strong, and we're able to raise essentially 10% of our goal within the first month, which was great. But the need for the dollars was essentially to support the activation efforts of the site. And again, these developers that we were talking to earlier in the game back in late 18 and 2019, they all said, you really need to activate the site. So that's where CWDI brought in the board of Salins Park Inc. and said, hey, we need your support and your assistance to activate the site, to get people down to the site. And so the fundraising effort from Salins Park Inc. was, in essence, to help in that process. And when you think about the things we were talking about, one of the big pieces was the activation of the beach. As you do know, there's a lot of people who use that beach, even though there are signs there no swimming. Our goal was to make that a formal public beach, but the resources required to do that are fairly significant. It's great. It's great to tell you that the YMCA of the Chesapeake has agreed to partner with us to activate that beach. But again, resources to fund staffing, equipment, and so forth, and maintenance. Those are going to be big ticket items, at least in the early stages, because until development occurs, there won't be a funding source. So we need to do some fundraising there. There are going to be some improvements to the playground area actually this fall. So we're helping with that. We're also looking at the current shoreline vegetation, which has overgrown in a lot of parts, and we're developing a survey to determine the types of things that we need to do to maintain and actually to restore. The wetlands right off the visitor center has certainly gone under some stress with various storms over the years. So we need to look at some of that as well. And then programming, again, activating the site means get people down there, events and the like. We host the annual Kite Festival down there under leadership of Chad Malkus, which has been great. But we also like to get some other events. Of course, the Freedom Swim ends at the beach. Hopefully that will come back. So the idea is that we need to activate the site, and then there's just some ongoing maintenance items that the city and county are just not in a position to help with, and so it's our effort to support that initiative. So yes, hopefully we can get started again. We just have to time it at the appropriate time so that we're not burdening people or asking people to do something that is just not the appropriate time.
Okay, great. So we did get a question in from Antonio Burns. I'm not going to put it up because I think he'll take the whole screen, but everybody can actually see it that are reading it. So I'm going to kind of paraphrase a little bit on it. They're asking about how you plan to make the waterfront public forever. Obviously, forever is a long time, but you guys have talked about what you're going to do that. Provided some examples of things that haven't gone so well at times in the past, but what are you guys doing now to try to make sure we preserve that? I know you've described earlier how you plan to get the public access and get it built. What are the things that we're putting in place to kind of make sure that stays there, over time?
Hey,
well,
when the design's done, it's done.
Right.
It's the parcels, as they go will be laid out. And again, Frank and I and the whole board, get it, and we're saying that public space is going to be there. It won't be a buildable parcel. It'll be public space. It'd be like a sidewalk or a street, or a park that is just non-negotiable and can be done.
And Bill, we're talking about a boardwalk that has bike lanes, running lanes, walking lanes. So, it is going to be a means of transportation to and from different segments of our community. And once in place, those are going to be absolutely critical to maintain. And of course, in our desire to make a walkable, pedestrian-friendly environment, and putting them in along the waterfront, like we've said, we're committed to. I'm not sure what else we can do other than say that, and again, create, as Jeff has said, that DMZ line where this is just non-negotiable. This is where it's going to be, and once it's in place, that's not going to change.
Great. That's a good answer. And you guys touched on other things that we were talking about right before we got on the program, because you guys are not only looking, I mean, you're not just looking at your spot, you're responsible for that, but you talked about some of the other things, the work going on at the packing house with the work going on rails to trails, getting sidewalks on other streets and connecting to downtown. Can you talk a little bit about how you guys are exploring that to make this not just an island, it's actually a focal point for the city and the county, but then also feeds the other parts that are here. I mean, it really is a focal point, but it's really going to be a draw to get people in and then get them moved to other parts of the city and the county.
Yeah, I think, it's always been, we've always talked about in my circles, we need the 3-day weekend here. We need to get people here and have enough to fill a full 3-day kind of long weekend type thing. And Frank is a big advocate and says it at every meeting. We're not trying to separate from downtown or from the packing house or anything else. We're trying to connect. We've had talks about one-way streets. I'll be honest with you, to move stuff from 50 towards downtown and not be able to backtrack in. The Peregrine development on Dorchester Avenue will give us an avenue to start with some street lights and some sidewalks to get hopefully the Dorchester Avenue corridor tied together. Cedar Street, up to Main Street and then back around, or vice versa over to Creek Bridge, up Gay and Race and then back down and around. The rails to trails, I'll be honest with you, that to me should be more. I think the ability to even put a road there all the way out to Woods Road and then out to 16 would give us a natural loop out to Hyatt. So you'd be able to leave Hyatt, and even with the rails to trails, they'll be able to do it. But go across at Walmart, go there, bring that, come all the way in under the pier, up to the fishing pier and then out on that side and go back around. So we're very aware. And actually, again, with funding getting tight like it is, there becomes a competition for grants, and state money and local money. And we're all real well aware of that. So, we're all trying to balance that out. We're in communication with everybody, even the Maces Lane school group. Linda, that's on the Salewinds board, is a part of that and keeps us informed there. And, we see that as an asset. Any place that people can gather and have events and do things, that's just an asset. That old, rising tide lifts all boats. That's the way we're looking at it. We're not trying to exclude or keep out. We're trying to open up.
Great. All right. I appreciate all your answers tonight and all the us asking questions. But one final question for you guys. What do you need from the community to make this successful? What do you need for folks to be doing to provide you guys to make sure that you have the best chance of success with this?
Well, the key thing here is try to be informed. A lot of times what happens is rumors start and they get spread, but the real response to that, if you hear something that you're not sure about or you don't like what you hear, Jeff and I are very accessible. The board of CWDI very accessible. Sandra Tripp Jones as well. Certainly we encourage you to reach out to us. Our board meetings are actually open to the public, so certainly you can attend those. They are posted at City Hall when they occur, and so certainly can come and participate there. But the other thing is that we really need you to actively participate on this site. Come down to the site, use the site, the boardwalk, the playground, picnic areas, the fishing pier. Next year, when we hopefully activate that beach, come down and use that and attend events. Again, the whole idea here is that we need to activate the site, have people down at the site. That's going to attract development and make developers very comfortable with potentially making investments on the site, knowing that there is a critical mass of people actively using the site. So, from my perspective, those are going to be important things to help us along the way.
Great. Jeff, from your side, anything?
Same thing. I tell you, Bill, and I hate to go back to it and say it, but let me tell you something. In 94 to 98, when we were trying to do this Hyatt deal, it was 20-1. The people that said it wouldn't work and that it would fail, and why Cambridge, don't buy into the rumor mill. Don't be a part of the problem, be a part of the solution. If you got a question, if you got an idea, my grandfather used to always say, my grandmother, it ain't who you are, what you are till you know. Well, by way of this, Frank and I. So if you got a question, come find us. I may not always agree with you, but I'll listen to you. And if you got a name of a guy that's in the hotel business that wants to build a hotel, let's go talk to him. That's how this stuff happens. It's people. It's so again, we may not always agree, but at least let's explain each other's side and why, and try to move this thing forward. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion, but not your own facts. So let's talk about the facts and see if we can't move this stuff forward. And Bill, thank you. I know we were talking about the fundraising back there. You were an early giver. We really appreciate that.
Great. All right. Well, Jeff and Frank, I want to thank you guys tremendously for your time tonight and for your ongoing efforts, everything you guys do. And it's not a small task you guys are taking on behalf of the community. Thank our sponsors again for tonight, and let everybody know our next community conversation is going to be on August 12th. That'll be with Patrick Kaminsky, for the city manager. So join that, come out for that on the 12th, and let folks know about this. If you watched it tonight and you got good information and learned some things, share it. Share the Facebook post tomorrow and get it out to folks. Again, thanks for joining us tonight. Again, thanks, Jeff and Frank, and we're off the air. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.